Okay, welcome to Left Out Loud. Today's episode is with Jackson Franklin. Jackson was running for Congress in Indiana's 5th district, and we taped this episode the day before the primary election. Obviously, there's post-production, takes a little while for this to get out. And unfortunately, Jackson did not win the primary in his district. However, he came in second place, and there were 7 Democrat candidates running for that position. Jackson is so remarkable, um, really passionate, and he campaigned for a year and a half. So you can tell that putting that work in at the ground level really made all the difference in the world for him to come in second place against an establishment candidate with tons of money and ahead of 5 other candidates. Um, I just feel like Jackson Franklin is headed for a really bright future in politics. So we are sad that he did not win his primary, but we are also so excited to see what's ahead of him. So watch this episode. Just full transparency. He did not win the primary, but he's definitely someone to keep an eye on. Jackson Franklin is going to be a name you want to know because he is going to go places. I guarantee it. So enjoy this episode.
Hey, Allie.
Hey, Seth.
Hey, you know what time it is, right?
I sure do.
Yes, indeed. So we've got a great progressive grassroots candidate. His name is Jackson. He's running for Congress in the great state of Indiana. He's a Hoosier. And so we are very excited to bring him in on our progressive candidate podcast, our interview series. He's young. He's 26. I don't even know if that's a young millennial or an old Gen Z, but either way, Jackson, welcome to the show, man.
Thank you guys so much for having me. It is Gen Z, and Maxwell Frost already took credit for being the first Gen Z in Congress, but I'm hoping to tie second this coming midterm election.
Okay.
You deserve that. A 26 is ambitious, and you've really got it together, Jackson. I can tell that already from what I've read.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, man, we're excited to have you on here. So, right off the top, we got to handle, one of the biggest issues of the day, which has been the crazy redistricting battle that is all across the United States, right? I mean, the South is taking that Supreme Court ruling and they're just running with it. Here in Alabama, we were like, we're not going to do it. Oh, wait, no, we definitely are going to do it. And we've had a redistricting map for weeks now. And it totally just made it up. So, but there in Indiana, you guys actually fought off redistricting, which was incredible because, Trump was making a hard push in all the red states. And first of all, I just want to know, what you think about this whole redistricting thing, how it's all been going down. And then secondly, what you thought about like the stance that your home state made.
Yeah, so I'm very proud to say that here in the Hoosier State, the crossroads of America, Indiana, we actually put so much people power, pressure on the supermajority Republican legislator at the State House. It's not like, oh, it was like we just had to convince a few Republicans. No. In fact, none of the Democrats could even show, like, they didn't even have to show up. There's a super majority in the state Senate and especially in the state House here in Indiana. But thanks to the thousands of people that were protesting for months, writing letters, and demanding that their politicians listen to them, the people of their districts, and not DC outsiders deciding they are entitled, or as Trump says, oh, I'm owed those seats. Like they're his basically. No, those seats are not their seats. Those seats are the people's seats. And very proud to say that I was on the front lines organizing across this state and coordinating a fight back. And when JD Vance came here twice, we were ready. We were waiting for him, and we booed him out of the state house. It made him go packing. And nationwide, the recent Supreme Court decision that overturned the Voting Rights Act of 1965 is just disastrously racist, it's not shocking that centuries of slavery and 100 years of segregation did not undo the racism that is still seen here in modern day America. You know, there's the invisible hand and oftentimes the not so invisible hand of white supremacy that still reigns supreme in this country. And it's our job as activists, organizers, people in the space to fight back and fight for a system that represents all people, not just the select few, not just the rich, but a nation that truly is of, by, and for the people. And don't let the politicians harass you. In Congress, I will continue to fight for the People Act, which was proposed in 2023, and it went down partisan lines. All Democrats, and what it did, by the way, is ban partisan gerrymandering, have nonpartisan, independent voting commissions decide our congressional districts. And all Democrats voted for it, all Republicans voted against it. So what you were hearing them now say today, yo, the Democrats are not playing fair. This fight that we started, how dare you play our rules? Cry me a river. You know, like it's crocodile tears and it's all made up. It's all just politics. It's all just, you know, rhetoric to them.
Yep.
They don't actually care about saving democracy. What they actually care about is ways to control you. And it's our job to fight back for the people.
Yeah. I mean, amen. I love it, Jackson. You're
Yes, sir.
feisty. So, Jackson, I read your bio. I want to say I've read a lot of bios as we've been going through this interview series. Yours is the best I've read because I really felt like I got to know you, Jackson, as a person, not just political talking points, not just your things that most politicians tend to focus on and curate, right? When they're creating a bio about themselves. I really felt like I connected with you. I'm so sorry to hear about your father's passing. I lost my father at a relatively young age. I know how devastating that is to a family, and the emotional and financial toll it takes on the family unit. So first of all, I just want to say I'm so sorry to hear that happened to you and your family. You are part of triplets. You have two triplet brothers. You have an older brother, older sister. Your father was a union worker, right, for General Motors for 27 years. You live in red Indiana. Like you said, it is a super majority. And I saw that when you were 16, you went to your first political rally, and that was a rally for Mr. Bernie Sanders. And that shaped your political vision. So you are truly a blue dot, right? I need to know, like, how are you received? Is your family progressive like you? Do they lean more red? What about your friend groups? Like, how have you managed to harness all of this progressive energy in such a red state?
Well, first off, I want to say I appreciate it. And, you know, my family's doing our best because it was back in
This
October.
last year, right?
Yeah. So it's, you know,
It's fresh
still,
and raw.
yeah. So, and I
Yeah.
appreciate it. But he would be proud of the movement that we've been building throughout the last year and a half of campaigning. And, you know, he was the guy, you asked me about my family's political beliefs. He was a guy who voted Republican in the past, well, before Obama. He's strong, proud union worker, you know, working at GM, UAW. And yeah, I mean, he's very passionate about the issues, fighting for, you know, working class people, strong, like strengthening unions. But he was kind of like more of like as far as vibes go, kind of like a conservative guy. And he was like, well, you know, I don't know about these things. But of course, we convinced him otherwise. And, you know, so we pulled him back to the center, which is progressivism.
Yeah.
And you asked me how I'm received here in red Indiana, or in, you know, mention Indiana does appear red on election night.
Mhm.
But I push back on that notion. I say, you know, Indiana last midterm election ranked 50th out of voter turnout in the whole
Yeah.
country. 60% of registered voters did not vote last election. So we are not a red state. We are, if anything, a gray state, did not vote state. If did not vote was a candidate on the ballot, they would win all across the state, hands
No.
down. But we have to ask ourselves, why are people not going out to vote? A lot of working people, they know the Republicans are going to stab them right in the face. But oftentimes they also feel like the Democrats have been stabbing them in the back. Indiana is a Rust Belt state. And when you look at both parties who take a large amount of money from corporate interest, wealthy special interest groups, and it's kind of hard to tell between some of them on some policies here. They feel betrayed. I mean, it was Democrats in charge that did NAFTA under Bill Clinton. So
Yeah.
people remember that here in this
Yep.
state. And the way we win back rural Indiana, did not vote Indiana. Like the people just feel disaffected. They feel politically homeless. There is no party for the working class. You give a home to the politically homeless. You
Yeah.
run on a populist message that rallies working class people. Most of our issues, of course, are not left versus right. It's top versus down. It's the working class people standing shoulder to shoulder next to you versus the billionaire oligarchs that have their boot on our neck, that are breaking down our unions, that are sending our jobs overseas and bribing our politicians on both parties to rig a political system to work for them while working families are struggling to get by and, in fact, dying. So the way we win here in Indiana is by doing what our campaign has been doing for the last year and a half. Run on popular messaging. Get this, and democracy, you should be popular to win in a vote, right? It
Yeah.
seems kind of simple to me and things such as like legalizing cannabis. According to a Ball State study, which I have to source, being someone in Muncie, of course, chirp, chirp.
Yep.
According to a Ball State study, 87% of Hoosiers want to legalize cannabis in one form or another, but we haven't done it. We're surrounded by states, even Kentucky, who's kind of more red, just as us. And even they have it legalized medicinally. So why does Indiana not legalize cannabis? I wonder if it has anything to do with Eli Lilly, Big Pharma, being headquartered in Indianapolis and lobbying our state legislator on both parties. So it's up to us to fight for that populist vision and actually give a home to the political homeless. And for the last 20 years, Republicans have dominated this state. Obama won in 2008 here in
Crazy,
Indiana.
right? Like,
Yeah.
so Indiana went blue once since 1968, I believe, in a presidential election, and it was for Barack Obama in 2008, his first term, which is a phenomenon that happened all over the country. It still boggles my mind, but it's like the one and only time Indiana went blue, and that one term only.
And Bernie Sanders, he won in the last real presidential primary that this state has had was 10 years ago. We didn't have one. It was over by 2020. We didn't have one in 2020, no primary in 2024. So 2016,
Crazy.
Bernie Sanders won this state of Indiana.
Yeah.
And not only he won the state, he won all 6 counties of the 5th district in which I'm running for Congress for. And 10 years after his victory, a grassroots progressive will win it again on working class issues.
Man, I
You got
love
me
to hear
fired
that.
up. You got me fired up, Jackson.
Yeah.
Love
Oh,
this
man, I love to
energy.
hear that because it really is that message of hope that Barack Obama was putting out there that was received so well. And I think your generation and millennials are primed to really carry that message forward with that Bernie Sanders gusto, right? Because that's just our guy, and he inspired me as well on my political journey. So, but we mentioned your triplets. You guys all decided to join the armed forces, and so you have a unique perspective from that part, along with gun rights and Second Amendment, things of that nature. And both of those things are things that people in Indiana, people in red states, Rust Belt states, as well as here in the South where I'm at, people really care about the veterans. People really care about Second Amendment rights. Talk about those parts of your campaign that you want to really get out there to the masses, to the people of Indiana, to say that, look, you don't have to be hard right Republican NRA to care about, common sense gun rights and to care about our veterans.
100%. So yes, I'm a triplet. All 3 of us are in the Indiana Army National Guard. My brother Julian and I, who looks exactly like me, basically, we actually deployed overseas together, in a for the genocide that was ongoing in Kosovo, we were on a NATO peacekeeping mission. And of course, I'm a military guy and I like shooting guns. Guns are fun. But it's also goes hand in hand. And I'm a firearm. Like I have rifles. I have, a lot of different firearms in my, possession, right? But I'm a responsible gun owner. And I can see that America has the highest amount of guns anywhere in the world. And it's not a coincidence that the highest, we also have the highest fatalities by gun deaths. And as someone who's in the Gen Z, my entire public education experience was that of school shooter drills. I
Yeah.
was in high school, I was in 8th grade actually during the Parkland shooting down in Florida. And seeing that, growing up, thinking like, oh, do our politicians not care about us? What's wrong with the system? The NRA lobbying our politicians, but at the federal and state level, not caring about us. So these are some of the things that have always been on my mind. And as far as like policies I'm advocating for and what I will fight for still once in Congress, it's what most of the nation already wants. If you look at the polling data, I believe from Gallup, please fact check me, 97% of Americans want universal basic background checks. That's just a basic thing. Like, hey, sir, do you beat your wife?
Right.
Like we're not taking away anyone's guns unless you're calling to do direct harm to people, or if you have like red flag laws. Like if you say you are going to hypothetically shoot up a school or wherever, maybe that person shouldn't go and buy a gun the very next day. You should be like, hey, pause. Let's get you the mental health that you deserve. And that's why we need to have
Right.
mental health care for all in this country. But there's just some basic things that most Americans agree with. Universal basic background checks, red flag laws, and even like high capacity magazines. Most Americans understand that like at some level, you are not acting in self-defense if you have, 60, 80 rounds in your magazine. So as I'm someone who shoots recreationally, I've done like army competitions and many more. I just like shooting, but I can also see that like some things are off the table. You wouldn't hand someone a nuke, or like you shouldn't be given like a tomahawk missile. So at some level, there is that line, and it's just discussing where that line is.
Yeah, makes total sense. I think it makes sense to so many of us. Unfortunately, like you said, there's a lot of money at stake, right? When it comes to this gun issue and common sense gun legislation. Um, okay, being in the military, and I saw on your platform that you're, obviously pro-Palestine, and you are in favor of defending Ukraine's sovereignty. So I have to ask how you're feeling about what's happening in Iran right now.
I'm very nervous and very scared about what's going on in Iran right now. I have friends over there. My brother-in-law is one of the 2,500 Marines in the Persian Gulf for the Strait of Hormuz. And during the times right now where Iran is threatening to, the only place that American sailors and, boats belong in the Persian Gulf is at the bottom of the ocean. That's the language they're saying.
Mhm.
Self-defense, I might say, like we went over there. Like don't go
Exactly.
over there if you don't expect to get, don't punch somebody that's huge and don't expect, and not expect to get punched back, right? So
Right.
preface on that answer. But I'm very concerned about my friends. And guess what? I'm not just concerned about my friends over there. I'm also concerned about the civilian casualties that our government and the Israeli government have been killing, massacring, terrorist strikes against girls' schools in southeastern Iran. A Tomahawk missile bombed a school and it killed 180 schoolgirls between the ages of 7 and 12. That's a terrorist
No,
attack. We need to pay
it is.
reparations for that. We need to make right by those families and do as much justice as we can. It's too late for those girls, but we can do what's right. Germany was paying reparations, up until like the 2010s or even maybe past that. So
Right.
but I'm very concerned about, going to Kosovo, seeing the results of what genocide does to a people. Of course, I have to stand against the ethnic cleansing of Ukraine, of the West Bank, and of course, the genocide ongoing in Gaza. I'm the only candidate in the whole state of Indiana that is endorsed by the Counter AIPAC group called Track AIPAC, or Citizens Against AIPAC Corruption. They're the ones that have like the big red background with the grayed out,
Mhm.
and then I'm fortunate enough to have a little green background colored in.
Love
No
it.
AIPAC money.
Okay.
But we have to stand, the UN was correct when it said what's going on in Gaza is a genocide. Using food, medicine, water as a weapon, like mass weapon against an entire people, that's a
Mhm.
war crime. And we have to send Benjamin Netanyahu, and all the top military leaders, even our own leaders, Donald Trump, Pete Hegseth, we have to send them to The Hague for the war crimes they have committed. So, of course, in my experience, and not to conflate, like, the military, the DOW does not endorse this message. They,
Right. Of
I have to
course.
say that probably, but
Of
as someone
course.
who's seen it firsthand, I was in Kosovo for a total of 9 months, a full deployment. We were there, me and my friends were there for about like 2, 3 month marker. And we were wondering, like, why are there just young people, like 15, 16, those
Mhm.
that and younger, and then there's just old ladies left, like Eastern European people, they call them like, oh, babushkas or whatever, like
Right.
kind of Soviet style. But there was no one in that age bracket of like the middle age bracket, like 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s.
Mhm.
And it took us a while to realize that's because they were all dead. Because all military age fighting people were all massacred, mass executions. They died in conflict. And that's what's at stake right here in the Middle East. And we have to fight back against that to make sure that
Yeah.
people live long, happy lives.
Quick follow-up to that. How do you reconcile? Because I think this is important to talk about. People feel like if you are pro-military, you cannot speak out against our overarching military, right? You can't talk badly about the Pentagon or military strategy and decisions and everything that we do governmentally from a military perspective. So how do you reconcile, right? You're pro-military, you're in the military. Your triplet brothers are in the military with, feeling empowered to speak out against some of the things that our military historically has done and unfortunately is continuing to do.
So, pro-military is a term, to say the least, and it's more so just a tool. Like I joined the National Guard. Now we do fight in conflicts a lot, but a lot of people, I mean, young people, there's a high school to prison pipeline. Like people don't have, college benefits. They don't have like any like, reasonable job offers, being in, some communities. So people are just joining to get out of poverty. They want to
Yeah.
go to college. I mean, as much as I did, partially why I joined was to go to college and not
Yeah.
worry about tuitional debt. But you watch the National Guard ads on TV and you see like, oh, a hurricane hit, tornado. You want to be that soldier that rappels down from a helicopter and gives a
Mhm.
kid a warm blanket and some water and food, right? And I've done quite a bit of humanitarian aid in the National Guard. I was
Yeah.
deployed for 2 years during COVID, helping people across the state of Indiana. I went down to Florida for Hurricane Milton. I helped during a winter snowstorm, helping get people all, out of the snow. But there's a lot of good things that the National Guard and the larger military can do, but it's more so, you blame the system, like who's in charge of the military using these tools, which is like, $1 trillion military budget at this point under the Trump regime, and he's trying to expand it to 1.5 trillion, which you can stack up the next 12 countries in the world's military budgets combined, and they don't add up to that much. And guess what? A good half of that is our allies. So what is NATO for if not like, hey, you can spend less on, military and actually focus on your people. Donald Trump doesn't want to do that. So how do I reconcile the differences between being in the military and actually supporting causes like a free palate, like against genocide?
Right.
Low barrier. Yes, I'm against genocide. I'm against the ethnic cleansing happening in Ukraine. And, I'm pro soldier. I'm a pro American, but it
Yeah.
doesn't mean that I'm pro like Death Star. Like, hey, like, oh
Mhm.
yeah, well the Death Star, like I'm just the janitor on the Death Star is kind of like the expect, and I can 100% see that. and
Yeah.
like I'm an instructor. I teach, I've been on the line, I've been with the infantry, and now I'm more in a teaching role. I teach soldiers all across and community members uh, combat lifesaver skills, how to stop bleeding, what to do in event of a heart attack, choking. So like teaching people how to save lives, and I'm very
Yeah.
proud of that. So, and it's just like, hey, I am fighting. Like, what am I doing in this camp? Like, yeah, I'm in the military. I'm also fighting to make sure the military doesn't bomb schools in Iran, that doesn't, bomb civilians in Venezuela. We're strangling Cuba right now. We're basically doing our
I
own
know,
genocide there.
it's terrible.
And so, yeah, I am fighting back. Like, I don't,
Yeah.
it's kind of like an oxymoron. It is like a weird position to be in, I guess.
I don't
But
think it is. I just find it
No.
refreshing, right?
Mhm.
It shouldn't be either or. We should be, this is America. If we truly have freedom in America, we should have the freedom to serve and also speak truth to power.
Yeah,
Don't
it's
follow
like
illegal
people
orders.
think we can't talk and chew gum at the same time or
Yeah.
walk and chew gum at the same time. Like you can absolutely care about our troops and you can absolutely be against the military industrial complex and the money that they are siphoning from the American taxpayers every single year. I mean, two trillion in Iraq, 2 trillion in Afghanistan. This war they're talking about projections around 1 trillion, if not more. So you got $40 trillion in debt, and 6 trillion of that is war. So, I think it's I think it's something that people are coming around on, right? Like we don't have to do one or the other. You can be both and stand for both. And both make sense. One thing I wanted to talk about was, our guy Bernie, one of his biggest platforms is universal health care. And it makes so much sense in rural places like you and I live, where, our rural hospitals are drying up. People don't have access to health care. There are healthcare deserts, things of that nature. Um, and I know that it's personal to you, living in a big family. Talk about
And being an
universal health
EMS
care and
worker.
yeah, and just talk about universal health care and how you want to try to bring that to not only Indiana and the rural areas, but our country.
So yeah, I believe that healthcare is a human right. And out of the 33 developed nations in the world, the United States is in fact the only one that does not guarantee that right through law. Everywhere else, the rich pay their taxes. They actually they're the best, more than here. And then you just
Imagine.
go to the doctor. You go to the doctor without fear of going through medical bankruptcy. And as my experience in EMS, I'm a paramedic now. Back when I was an EMT, I was on a transfer ambulance. And most of the time it was like dialysis patients, transplant, or like, inter facility transport. Too many times I took veterans as someone I look up to, my heroes, veterans from the hospital back to their homes to die because they didn't want to put their families in medical bankruptcy. This nation cannot take care of those that took care of us. They go overseas and they fight and nearly die for this country. And they come back here to a healthcare system that prioritizes the profits of the billionaire CEOs at the top at the expense of the lives of the men and women that have already sacrificed their lives for this country. And our campaign slogan is proudly saying, people over profits, because that's who the government is supposed to serve in the first place. I am fighting for Medicare for all, much like Bernie Sanders. And I think, medical bankruptcy, by the way, is the number one form of bankruptcy all across this country, which is a uniquely American experience. And thanks to the one big beautiful bill, which the Republican I am going to replace on November 3rd, she voted for. It would cut 18 million people off their Medicaid. And now more than 120,000 Americans die every year due to lack of health care. And more than 300,000, they're not dying, but they're just sitting with chronic pain, chronic illness, without a way to go to the hospital and not go into medical bankruptcy. So having a Medicare for all, Medicare for dear listener, it includes 65, if you're 65 and older, but it does not include dental, vision, or hearing. Me and many others across the nation are calling to expand that gap, that age, to all. It's a 4 or 5 year transitionary period where you just lower that age. 65, all right, this year it's 55. And all 18 and under are covered. And then you'll lower it 10 years until everyone's covered, as well as including dental, vision, and hearing, because you shouldn't have a shiver down your back because you get a little bit of tooth pain. And that's going on all across this nation.
Yep, absolutely. All right, let's talk about that sticker you're wearing.
Yes, if you're doing it podcast style, I am wearing a I voted sticker. Early voting, it started in Indiana about a month ago, and tomorrow is the big election day, May 5th. It's the primary. We've been running this campaign for a year and a half, and I can finally say, May 5th just seemed like such an abstract date to me. But
Right.
now I'm like, Tuesday. It's tomorrow now.
Yeah.
So I'm very happy and proud, that I was able to vote for a cause I believed in, and my name was on the ballot. So
Incredible.
yeah, and thank you so much to all the staff and supporters that have helped us along this way. But if you're in Indiana and you're reading this on election day, happenly, get out and vote. So,
Tomorrow's it, right?
Yeah.
That's it. That's the deadline. Who are you running against on the Democrat side?
there are 7 candidates, including
Okay.
myself,
Okay.
and anyone who is, being realistic in the election is really our grassroots progressive campaign as one of the front runners, and then the more
Fantastic.
establishment campaign as the other front runner. So it's really,
Sure.
we should have ranked choice voting, so we don't have to worry
Yeah.
about this, but it really flocks between, what side you have, and, those two go up, and then everyone else, good, well-meaning people
Right.
that should have their voices taken, be heard. But yeah,
Yeah.
that's kind of how it is. So it's me and against JD Ford,
Okay.
state senator, and there's a bunch of other people. Steve Avitt, Bill
Okay.
Goss, Tara
But
Nelson.
you've been doing this for a year and a half. What about your opponents? Have they been in the race as long as you?
No one has even held a candle for how much like we've been fighting, how hard our ground game has been, our message. I'm very proud to say that I've actually got them to be more progressive, all of them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Except for maybe one, except for the establishment campaign. But everyone is like, oh yeah, like Jackson maybe has a point on this abolish ICE thing. Jackson maybe has a point about not taking corporate PAC money. Jackson probably he has a good point about calling what's going on in Gaza a genocide. So we're dragged Medicare for all these things. They're like, okay, I like what that guy's saying, and I'm like, then just support me.
Yeah. So
drop out, vote for me.
Yeah, I'm glad we agree. Can we? Yeah.
So before I'm going to give Seth the final word, but before we do that, I just want you to know it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you, Jackson. I'm really pulling for you. I hope that you win this primary. I hope your name is the name on the Democratic ballot going into the November midterms. If so, please come back because we want to push as much support your way as humanly possible. But I just want to say that, I really appreciate you as a Gen Z, as a 26-year-old, putting yourself out there, working so hard. You have a job. You're in EMS, you're in the National Guard, you're a trained combat medic, and you've spent a year and a half building this momentum around progressive politics. And I mean, I'm in awe of you, really. You're a fantastic person.
Thank you so much, Allie. It means a lot. Thank you. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, man, it's commendable, to have your priorities in line that early in life. That's really going to serve you. And we can just both tell that you got a great career ahead of you. But we want everybody to come out in the 5th District of Indiana to come out and vote for you, Jackson. And I mean, all the luck in the world. But we have this thing on our show. We have a little scale. We have a little scale on the right side of the scale is Chuck Schumer. On the left side of the scale is our guy, Bernie Sanders. And so we asked every single one of our candidates to come up on here. Jackson, just want to confirm you're a progressive candidate. You're not taking corporate PAC money. You're not taking money from AIPAC. And you are committed to staying grassroots and really running for the people of this country.
Yeah, forever and always, 100% committed to the cause, and the cause is larger than any of us. It's going to take people. It's going to take your help dear listener or reader, however you're viewing this, we need your help. It's as John Lewis once said, the power of the people is greater than the people in power. It's up to us to organize that power and fight for a future that we all believe in.
Hell yeah.
Wonderful.
Power to all the people.
Power to the
man.
people and power to you, Jackson. Wishing you all the luck. I'm going to keep my eye on the Indiana primary tomorrow. Keep my eye on that race. But I'm really, we're rooting for you. 100%.
So everybody,
buddy.
his name is Jackson Franklin.
Yes.
He's running in the 5th district of the great state of Indiana, the Hoosier State. And Jackson, just let everybody know where they can get in touch with you.
What are your social? What's your social handle,
media,
your
website, and all that,
or your campaign website? Yeah.
Please go to jacksonfranklinforcongress.com, where you can find all of our social media. We're on everything. Or if whatever your preferred app is, just type in Jackson Franklin for Congress. A lot of letters, I know. And please give us a follow, especially, and if you live in the 5th district, spread the word. If you live in Indiana, spread the word. Wherever you live, spread the word about this grassroots campaign. We can't do it without you guys. We need the people to get involved. All it takes for evil to prevail is for good people to do nothing. So please get involved, and we can create all the policies that we talked about. These are possible. They're not just some pie in the sky ideas. It takes real work and real, sweat, blood, and tears to get this done. And, together we will create a system that truly places people over profits, but we need your help.
Just when I think I can't like him more, Allie, he busts out one of my favorite quotes.
Yeah,
all that it takes is for good men to do nothing.
Yep.
That's really what it's about. It's about us getting out there and doing something. Just do something, and vote is the very least that we can do. So, man, Jackson, once again, thank you so much for the time. You got a bright future, but I think the future is now. I think Indiana is going to vote for you, brother.
I really hope so. You're exceptional, Jackson, and it was a real treat to have you here. Thank you. Here on the eve of the final election date for the primary, you made time for us, and we really appreciate that. It was an honor having you.
Thank you guys so much, and keep up the great work. Keep fighting the good fight. The struggle continues, and the movement does not stop on election day, no matter what happens. Right. So, thank you guys for all the work that you've been doing and getting the word out there. I really appreciate it.
All right.
And instead of our usual outro this week, I want to play the podcast out with Jackson's, concession speech, where he talked to all of his volunteers and supporters. It's so inspiring, and I feel like I can't possibly do it justice. So instead of doing our typical outro, where we talk about the candidate and everything that we learned, I just want you to hear from Jackson.
All right, everyone. Firstly, most importantly, I want to say thank you all for supporting this grassroots, people-powered campaign. None of this would have been possible without all of you guys. So I just want to say thank you for participating in democracy and fighting for the future that we all believe in, and deep down, we all know we deserve. All right? There is more reasons to be proud of the work that we have done here than anything to be ashamed of. We built a real people-powered movement in this district. We fought tooth and nail, blood, sweat, and tears for the last year and a half, fighting for working-class people, and I am damn proud of all the work that we have done. So give yourselves a round of applause. I can't say thank you enough. This sucks, to be blunt. But I want to give you guys some hope as well. We're not going anywhere. There is going to be a next time. We are learning the lessons for this election, and we are carrying that forward. Because guess what? The struggle continues. There is another fight to be had tomorrow. There are more people to help, more people's voices to raise up in this system that prioritizes the profits of billionaires over the lives of us working class people. And that's why this campaign slogan is proudly saying, people over profits. I want to say thank you to my family, to my beautiful girlfriend Rebecca, to all the people who've knocked thousands of doors, called thousands of phone calls, written letters, talked to your family members, sent text messages out. I want to say thank you to my amazing campaign manager, Chelsea McDonald. We have all sacrificed so much for this cause. And I know that one day we will be victorious. We will rise up on top, because it's as civil rights leader John Lewis once said, the power of the people is greater than the people in power. It's up to us to organize that power going into 2028, but not just then. The time is now. The time is now to effect real change in our legislating bodies, both in Congress, the state Senate, the House districts, here in Muncie, and local races across the state. We've had an outsized influence in changing the dialogue, not just in this town, not just in this district, not in this state, but this entire country. People are talking about what's going on in Gaza. People are talking about Medicare for all, healthcare is a human right. People are talking about getting money out of politics and having politicians that listen to us, the working class, and not the wealthy donor class. We should be proud of that fact. And I'm going to preface this next comment by saying, I will crawl over broken glass to vote against Victoria Sparks, right? But that doesn't mean that you earned my vote. You don't own our vote. You have to earn our vote. And it should not be like pulling teeth to ask our Democratic politicians to acknowledge the genocide ongoing in Gaza. We need to stand up. We need to stand in solidarity with the oppressed people across the world. And when you can look on your phones and on your TVs and see Holocaust happening, silence is violence. And when you look at these poll numbers, out of the 7 candidates, 6 out of 7 candidates acknowledge the genocide ongoing in Gaza. 6 out of the 7 candidates fought for Medicare for all. 6 out of the 7 candidates raised their hands saying that they would not take corporate PAC money. So it's not on us to give you blind trust going into this fall. Come to where the people are, and then that's the only way we're going to replace Victoria Sparks this November 3rd. And trust me, I want to replace Victoria Sparks. I've been campaigning, we've all been campaigning so long to get that fascist out of office. Yeah, but we have to learn the lessons of 2024. 37%, according to the DNC's own autopsy of registered voters, they said they did not want to vote for Kamala Harris because she did not agree with the people on Gaza. So I'm asking the victorious campaign of this election cycle to stand with us, the working class people you are trying to represent. And I will be happy to support you. Right now, I'm going against Victoria Sparks. Earn our vote, earn our trust, and I will be in your corner. I'll fight every single day to make sure you get across that finish line. But the ball is in your court. We are calling for justice, and we know oppression anywhere is a threat to liberty and justice everywhere. I just want to say thank you all. We are not done. There is going to be a 2028. There is going to be a brighter future to be had. Be optimistic. We've done a lot. With the little amount of money that we raised, we did a huge influence on what the dialogue is in this country. So be proud. I want to say thank you all very much for being here, for all voting, participating in our democracy. And just know that one day we will create the future, a system that is of, by, and for the people, and a government that does truly place people over profits. Thank you.